All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Today's topic: why enterprise organizations trust WellSaid. And we are so excited to have you all here today. If this is your first webinar with us, allow me to introduce myself. I am Kimaya Sharp. I'm the customer marketing strategist here at WellSaid, and I will be your moderator today. I am joined today by Katie Dusich, who leads our governance, risk, and compliance. And I'm excited to have her on to help tackle our critical enterprise challenge, which is how to trust AI. Now, it's not just for quality, but it's also for compliance, for governance, and for security. So, Katie, would you mind just, I guess, first introducing yourself and then just giving us a breakdown of what today's webinar will cover?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kimai, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited for today. My name is Katie, and I'm our manager of GRC here at WellSaid. So that includes covering compliance as it relates to security, to privacy, and also to our AI compliance and how all of that impacts our customers on their journey with WellSaid. So as organizations continue to evaluate AI tools, trust has really become that foundation for responsible adoption. So that in mind, wanted to hop on with all of y'all for the next 45 minutes to unpack that. So what we'll start kind of with that foundation of it all, just the trust, what makes trust difficult, what's at stake, what's missing, and how we're addressing that at WellSaid. And then, although trust is a shared responsibility across every function, today we'll go deep into WellSaid's approach into governance and how we approach compliance and security and how it's embedded into our platform and our processes. You'll also get to see our principles and actions, so how we manage voice data and consent, content moderation, and our model integrity, which is, of course, at the core of our business. And then I have the opportunity to share a few customer cases and examples with y'all to better understand the process and people that have been perhaps in your shoes in the world, how trust shapes onboarding, risk reviews, kind of that daily use, and open the floor to some Q&A from there.
Love it. Thank you. It's a very solid agenda. So thank you so much again for being here today. And before we get fully into the crust of things, I would love for everyone to kind of chime in and let us know, what brought you here today. So where are you chiming in from? Maybe even your role, just to kind of find out exactly how all of this ties into what you deal with day to day. So feel free to chime in now. And while you're doing that, Katie, I think we could go ahead and get started while we're waiting on that. Now, we
Yes.
all know that AI adoption is surging, like it's everywhere. But if you're in a large organization, especially one that's within a regulated industry, you can't just, like flip the switch. You need the right foundation. And to me, that foundation is fully based on trust. So, Katie, from your lens, leading GRC here at WellSaid, what makes trust such a hard thing to build when it comes to AI?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. It's the question that we hear from nearly every enterprise team that we talk to. We evaluate it, and when evaluating, ARs ourselves, and so trust breaks down. I think so quickly when AI tools lack transparency. When you don't know how a model is trained, the data that went into it, how decisions are made, it becomes this black box, and we want to work to really open that up. And add to that if you have irresponsible use of voice cloning, vague or missing data consent, inconsistent moderation, and suddenly you're looking at like this real compliance and brand risk. So that's what we look at as we're evaluating trust is really our baseline foundation to address all of those things.
Okay. And that's not just like hypothetical, right? Like we've seen teams that get stuck in procurement or in the legal reviews for months over these issues. I know when I first started at WellSaid, kind of working hand in hand with you, what we saw was just a lot of just kind of back and forth with a lot of these things. So what do you think makes this even more critical for voice technology in particular?
Yeah, I do think a part of it is exactly as you mentioned that it is voice technology. I think voice AI itself is very incredibly personal. That it represents your brand, your people, your values. It's so unique, and has to be authentic, and really safe and respectful. So that's why at WellSaid, from our inception, we designed everything, our technology, our policies, our support systems, to meet the standards of enterprise teams so that they can feel confident in control of something that is so personal, right? It's the ethos with, that we approach training our models. It's how we secure our development, and make a trustworthy development ecosystem that supports our organization.
Mm, okay. Yeah. So now that we've kind of like outlined the trust challenge, I say we can shift gears a little bit and talk about how we're solving for that. And I know just from my lens, at Well Said, this is not just something that's retrofitted for later. Like it's something that we designed basically from day one. So you've been with this organization almost from conception, and I'm sure you could just verify that we've had at the core of our thinking just making sure that we are going to be that AI voice partner for the Fortune 500 brands, highly regulated industries, and we have to deliver more than just this realistic sound. We had to deliver, like enterprise readiness. So, with that, do you think that you could speak a little bit, or maybe even possibly just kind of walk us through how we've kind of built that foundation specifically, how our brand pretty much kind of supports that safety, that compliance, and that governance, excuse me, at scale.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I say that we designed everything, our tech, our policies, our support systems, to uh, meet enterprise teams where they're at, right? Like, we treat trust as a system, not as a checkbox. So, we were, around some of these larger frameworks pre 42001. The EU AI Act has evolved a lot since we've been a company. So when we started building trust systems and principles from our inception, it's a because it was the right thing to do, but b it was something that we wanted to be able to match to a system because that would help us kind of develop these powerful tools with process in mind so that we could metric ourselves and hold ourselves accountable. um, uh, it helped us be responsible and systematic, in creating trust in our internal processes, which so from day one, enterprise was first and foremost in WellSaid's mind, and being ready for enterprises who don't just need to meet kind of trust criteria. We need to design for it. We need to ensure that we are holding ourselves to that standard as well. So I guess we can really just start with the voice creation itself. Um, so first is consent. Every one of our voices is built with explicit permission from our trained voice actors who are paid for their inclusion on our platform. And this is really important to us because our voice actors are a really critical system of that trust ecosystem. Um, Leads into that we don't do voice cloning ever. No voice cloning without that consent. We would never scrape voice data. All of our training materials are obtained either purchased data sets or ethically with consent, or publicly available with consent. That's really important. So what that means, what you hear is the product of a really intentional relationship building, and direct partnership with our voice actors. So even in the span, let's see, we've been around probably a little over 6 years and hundreds of voices. You would notice, if you've been with us for a while, you would notice the consistency on the platform, that the voices that have been there since day one are still there. So, for example, when we add styles, that's the product of voice actors expanding their partnership with us. It partially because we're so uh, concerned with managing that relationship and making sure that there is trust there, which then lends itself to being very risk aware. That translates itself to benefits for our customers. Um, but kind of goes both ways, right? Like Wilson has fantastic customers, and just as we want our customers to have access to these high quality voices from these great voice actors, we love that our voice actors feel safe lending their voices to the platform for our customers because we're transparent about, um, you know, safe use and safe practices in our terms of service, how we manage our data, and these decisions, it kind of creates that symbiotic effect of these fantastic customers getting to use great voices, and great voices trusting that uh, great content that our customers create. So all of this lends itself to trust, and we're very proud to maintain that. And I know I called this out just a second ago, but this is something that we highlight it, pardon me, in our terms of service multiple times, because it's such a part of our ethos. So we're so committed to protecting your rights, in the sense that again translates to kind of the third part in this, right? There's um, your data, your decisions, your voice actors, and then there's the content itself, like what you choose to render. And we're so committed to protecting your rights to your content that we reinforce it multiple times in our terms of service. And I just wanted to call that out here, because we state very verbatim that your user content remains yours. And we go on to say we do not claim any ownership rights or any user content that you make available through the services. Then we go on in a paragraph later on to say, for clarity, you retain ownership of the audio files. So we're really committed to protecting your ability to work effectively, because your work is your work, and we stand by that commitment to that.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really important call out. Your work is your work, especially with some of that very sensitive information that's having to be created by a lot of organizations, knowing that it is going to be something that is exclusive to them. It's not going to be any outside eyes being able to kind of tap into, what they're creating. I think that's really, really important to call out. And with that, I do want to open the floor if anyone does have any questions for us to answer those now. I did have one that came in, Katie. So are you open to answering this question?
Absolutely.
All right. So with this question, it says, can we control who has access to voice content inside our organization? So I feel like you kind of touched on that already, but feel free to go ahead and take the floor with the answer on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we offer different kind of permissions and controls within Studio, that give you a little bit more refined control over who can see what, including that we have access to projects, so that different teams have kind of that flexibility to work on your content as you see fit to designate. So we um, work to give you the tools that you need to kind of enable that project building and co-working too, as it ends up being, to share information as you see fit.
Yes, that team's collaboration, I think, is a huge game changer. It was something we were able to kind of showcase on a previous webinar. So, great feature. If you have not tapped into it yet, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to your dedicated account manager, or you can follow up with us post webinar. We'd be happy to make sure we point you in the right direction so that you know how to utilize that feature. But we shall continue. Yes, Katie? Didn't see any additional questions come in. So, we'll keep going here with our whole format. Now, I think all of this that you've discussed previously, it kind of leads us into the next facet of this trust program, which is on the compliance side, right? So maybe you can kind of speak a little bit more to what all of that entails.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, our compliance program is meant to kind of bolster those original policies around security, privacy, and AI responsibility. So, um, we I think if we go on, we're SOC 2 certified. Our platform includes audit trails to reinforce. Basically, what I had outlined above, like these principles that we can then audit against. So SOC 2 does that for security. This includes our access controls, data minimization by design, and recently kind of expanded our frameworks to align with other major global standards. That includes including controls that are relevant to ISO 27001, 42001 for AI management, keeping up with global frameworks such as the EU AI Act, as I mentioned. Um, We've also kind of strengthened support for existing policies, and I think we detail this on the next slide, that there are a few that there are controls for GDPR and CPRA that enterprise clients need to pass procurement, legal, and InfoSec reviews within the U.S. So we really are trying to audit against this body of work that we've built up and match it to frameworks, of course, that are uh, well known, well audited against, that uh, enterprise customers would ask about. Um, so I think some of our most recent efforts in this, we're about to finish literally within the next few days our fourth SOC 2 audit. This would mean that we have kind of years worth of independently, third party verified controls against our security policies. That mean proving that kind of consistency, and that ability to keep kind of growing and developing. We also just finished our first AI responsibility audit, which includes like uh, auditing our development practices, how we build our models. Are we, accounting for potential biases? Are we looking for ways that our AI could be used irresponsibly, and then making sure that it answers that? And we were able to, we'll have that report available in the next coming weeks, but happy to report that it was a fully clean report from our audit team. So some things to look forward to, but just part of the ways that we're continually looking to verify this responsibility trust uh, program that we've built.
Love it, love it, and why would we think anything less with that, that report, right? We work hard
Call
for
it
it, so
out. Have to.
Now, I do want to pose another question to our audience. So, again, feel free to chime in, but would love to know typically how long does it take for you with security reviews when you're onboarding new tech? Like, is that something that's a pretty strenuous process for you where you're ready to kind of like pull out your hair? Or has it been pretty easy for you? So, I would love to know kind of what that typically looks like. And while we're getting those answers to come in, Katie, I'm going to throw another question at you and ask what are some of the common blockers that you happen to see that have kind of created an area of opportunity to be able to refine some of the bottlenecks that our customers may be experiencing from other organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, starting out, there are some, large areas that we felt we could address. Those are the big ones, like SOC 2. We start seeing a lot of questions um, around AI compliance and responsibility. That was a major reason that we undertook this recent audit, was to help answer some of those questions up front, provide resources, and then make that available to publicly, which we put on our trust page. I think I'll drop a link at the end so that we can show this, what's already um, what we have there available and what we're constantly building on. So that's one thing. There's you can kind of categorize questions in a few of those big groups. I think next are the ones that are, one-off and specific to customers and their needs and their use cases. And we're really conscious of the fact that our customers have their own security, privacy, confidentiality standards that they look to meet based on their own ethos or compliance needs. So when we say that we treat security by design, it's really to align ourselves with you. So we start with these reports, we start with the trust page, and then we can take that and tailor it to and meet you where you're at. So what do you need on top of that? Then we can match these controls that we have built in addition to that we built because it's not only the right thing to do, but it's what helps get you to where you need, and work with you to make sure that we can show that we are the right fit for as a trusted partner.
Okay, now in the spirit of that trust criteria and this compliance checklist that people have to go off of, what is like the number one question that you typically hear or
Yeah,
see?
absolutely. I think data management is a huge one. Talking about consent with voice actors, allowing customers the opportunity to, delete their data through, we mentioned that on the terms of service as well, to make sure that that's consistently available. Um, I think that those are two things that are really at the core of Gen AI use right now. Is managing and making sure that AI is being used in the way that, we're saying it that it is. And so that's how, we kind of go about showing that yes, these are our statements supporting this. This is our technical controls supporting this. These are our third party independently audited information helping to verify that, and making sure that all of that is then available, and easy to kind of synthesize so that you can get through the headache of the security review process. So
Get through the headache. And it's not just the paper compliance, right? Like these are independently verified controls that are already pretty much helping our customers get to the yes faster during their onboarding process. So, like, regardless of the industry, these frameworks are going to give the teams the confidence that they need to be able to move forward with us as a solution. They can move forward safely and responsibly. So, I think,
absolutely.
it's a huge lift there on our end. Now, let's talk about some of these teams. I know you mentioned that there would be some case stories or case studies that you may be able to talk about. So let's just kind of talk a little bit about what trust looks like in real life. How are our customers pretty much putting these principles into action?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think kind of in the spirit of this trust criteria, right? So these customers are evaluating and asking the same questions that we mentioned right up top, evaluating against our compliance, you know, our body of compliance work. This is SOC 2, which we've held for years at this point. This is privacy and security policies that are reviewed annually, both as a part of that and as internal exercises. This is new mapping to global frameworks that, we're addressing permission to use customer script and voice actor data, internal risk assessments, approval chains, moderation that includes, human in the loop. This is not, a fully automated. There is a human element, and continuously updating to stay ahead of AI governance standards. So that helps us with customers that I think do have really in depth security needs. And one of the most powerful things that we've seen is how quickly trust in those areas can accelerate adoption. So, especially once the right standards are in place, we it allows us to help work with, for example, I think the first one I feel like is a good fit is healthcare, and we've worked with major healthcare organizations with incredibly rigorous security review processes, understandably so. They need to be so, thanks to our existing security standards that help meet those, kind of globally recognized controls, the structured data consent practices, voice actor documentation. We're able to get through their legal and procurement um, e- very efficiently without compromising their risk protocols. Because, as I said, we understand why that is a review that needs to happen, and we're happy to undertake that because we feel like we can be a good partner there. Um, so healthcare is one example of where we really need to meet those customers. This also extends to other highly regulated industries. So government is a great example. Banking is a great example, that also need strict assurances, which we're able to provide. So um, those assurances lend themselves really well to regulation. And as a governance person myself, that is definitely a portion of my job. The other half of it is that security and trust lends itself well to trust in kind of creative spaces, that I think seems a little bit more nebulous to talk about, but actually kind of boils down to the same things. So we've also worked with major retailing brands that, for example, might need to, localize training data across multiple markets, which in and of itself presents compliance questions, while also wanting to meet their creative objectives, which mean aligning a voice with their brand identity and maintaining consistency, scalability. So because our voices are created and permissioned with consent, they're able to scale safely across geographies without worrying about unauthorized use or cloning concerns, and able to meet basically taking those security privacy frameworks that we might apply in like a regulated industry, and using it just very similarly, just with a different what appears to be a different flavor, but ends up being a lot of the same things. So
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of thought goes into the process to make sure that everyone can kind of have their win. So, yeah, it's definitely a win for everyone across the board, I think.
definitely these um yeah, these outcomes aren't just, I think, wins for legal. They're really wins for marketing, they're for operations, they're for sales and product and procurement. This goes I think anyone that's been involved in the security review process, as I'm sure we've all kind of touched at some point, has knows how many objectives need to be accomplished. And I think that that's an incredibly fair problem to have, right? So that's what we're trying to address when we say trust, is that everyone benefits when these trust criteria are kind of baked in from the start, so that you have the assurance you need. And we're happy to provide. So we starting with that responsible data management, ensuring that right from the core of WellSaid's models, content safety measures. We're addressing uh, security and privacy in that development cycle, and
Yeah,
then
because, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, just again reiterating that responsible development, secure development leads to quality, and that our models are better, our processes are better, because we're able to address security not as a checkbox, but as a question. It's a question. It's something that we then show long-term trust by incorporating, that of course satisfies our government questions. That's the enterprise grade policy driven controls that align with global standards, with US standards, with um, industry frameworks. It's not reactive moderation, they're very systematic, and enables that responsible use that allows our customers to create um, more effectively.
Yes, and I feel like at the core of it all, it's kind of circling back to the very beginning of the webinar. Trust is the foundation. It's not just something that we say we care about. You actually see it proven over and over again in the way that you are working so tirelessly to be able to build that support, to be able to build and to scale with. So, it's I feel like here at Well Said, like that's the whole point. We're not just building these voices so that you have some really cool product to work with. We're building systems that allow you to earn the trust, from the first demo to the proof of concept, all the way to, hey, it might even be global deployment for a lot of organizations. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that information, Katie.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's a very important part of how we approach our day to day here at Well Said, that when you're in large organizations, especially ones that with oversight or need compliance needs, security requirements, trust can be the make or break factor. And it's not that nice to have. It's what makes adoption possible. And to be fully it's one of the things that makes me very proud to work in my job. Is I think that security and compliance lends itself very well to um, what can end up being very human, and that's that trust factor. So it's very, I believe, at the core of everything that we do here.
Yes, and I love that you said you love what you do, because I think that just adds even more value to it. It allows people to be able to really know that when this infrastructure is strong, like things can move faster. And we're here to really just kind of help them unlock it so that they can get to their final stopping point to really execute. So love, love, love that you highlighted that. Thank you so much for sharing again. And I think with that, we can kind of shift into some questions. Again, if anyone has questions, feel free to drop them into the chat or within the Q&A, which should be open for you all, whether it's about security, workflows, use cases, or anything else that we've touched on today. So again, we'll give you a few minutes to go and put those questions in there. And I believe that we have another one that has come in already, Katie. So you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
All right. So the question is, how often do you update your policies to match changing regulations like EU, IA, and CPRA?
Yeah, absolutely. So, at the very least, we update them annually. If there hasn't been any changes, we're making sure that that's reviewed to mostly align with what we're doing internally. Then, of course, there's that other question, like if regulations have updated, I mean, we're continually evolving to make sure that we meet that uh, releases updates at their kind of discretion, and we follow along to see where we align with that. So in the next kind of actually coming weeks, we have AI addendums that are coming to the policies that are on the trust page to address some of that. And you'll kind of notice throughout the year we will make updates to our page and show that addition and how we're adding and growing and making sure that those policies not only fit what we do, but are accurately representing what we do. They are then shaping what we need to do as regulations change. Um, yeah. So to put it the two ways, at least annually, if nothing has changed, and likely more frequently um, when we get new guidance, which we look forward to.
Awesome. So, with that, those who are attending today, obviously they're attending for a very specific reason. Is there a possibility of providing them with some of those resources ahead of time?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use I it's at trust.wellsaidlabs.com is our uh, page where we include all of these policies. You'll also see monitoring on the page, which helps show that live up to the minute assurance of what we're monitoring our infrastructure, that our audit controls are in place, so that's available at any time. We also have all of this summarized in a security one pager, which goes a little bit more in depth depending on what you're looking for, into where how we're meeting standards. There's uh, general overviews of our infrastructure, so that you can really see, uh, get a little bit more in depth. Again, if that's what you're looking for, and happy to provide that link. And then, um, I mean, when you're requesting things on the trust page, those are coming really straight to me and to our security team. So those requests, if you're going through a security review, chances are I'm on the other end, and I look forward to working with you. So anything else beyond that, we're more than happy to accommodate.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, there's another question I have here. It says, what's the difference between WellSaid's voice models and voice cloning? So, what's the difference there?
Yeah, definitely. So our voice models are really how we train our voices. They are kind of the foundation for each of our voices. Voice cloning itself is um, that that's the consensual work with the voice actor that we do. So there are, I guess it's possible to clone a voice without obtaining that consent. That's kind of, I think, some of the conversation that people see around deep fakes or things like that. That I guess you could kind of classify as voice cloning, which is what we don't do without consent. So that our models are developed on data that we obtain through open source. That's also falls into this consent category. The voices themselves that we develop are a second category of data protection that we handle both separately, but in conjunction. So model developed ethically, voices created consensually to avoid unconsensual cloning.
Awesome. Well, thank you for breaking that down. And I'm not seeing any more questions come in. So, I think wipe your brow. We're done with the Q&A. But I do want to thank everyone for their questions, for your engagement and your curiosity here. I think we covered quite a bit of important information. And again, I want to give you a huge thanks, Katie, for just sharing your expertise here. And also for all of you for just joining the webinar and bringing such great energy to today. Is there anything else you wanted to add to the webinar or the topic at hand today, Katie, before we wrap up?
I think that's really it. I thank you so much for having me and for giving me a chance to talk about something that is, yes, so dear to me. And I look forward. I saw a couple of people in the chat as you go through your security review process. I look forward to getting to work with you and show kind of how WellSaid is able to help meet your goals. So thank you so much, Kimaya, for being, as always, an incredible moderator, and everyone for their time. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So, again, thank you all for joining us today. We cannot wait to see what you create with our studio platform. And until next time, happy creating. We'll see you all for the next webinar.
Thank you, everyone.